Mr. Chairman, good to see you, sir. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Maria. It's great to be on.
And there you are, coming from the World Ag Expo with plenty of farmers who, no doubt, have to be questioning now being forced to pay more to actually get their goods into China. Give us your reaction to the aluminum and steel tariffs and this move this past week on China.
Well, China is a big problem. We actually are running an investigation on many aspects of China at the House Intelligence Committee. I think most Americans know that China is in fact stealing our intellectual property. They're spreading globally. They continue to manipulate currencies. So China has to be taken on. I'm not sure that the aluminum and steel tariffs is the way to do it. However, this is the path that the president has outlined for the American people. And let's remember, every president has said that they're going to get tough on people who cheat on trade. This president is actually doing it. And so we're going to have to, so as that happens, we're going to have to watch the markets. I think every trade agreement is going to be negotiated. My recommendation to the White House is to not only just look at tariffs, but let's look at where we can actually tear down tariffs too. So perhaps we can take this opportunity to strike trade deals with allies like Japan, possibly Vietnam, the Philippines, other places in Asia, so that if China does want to get into a trade war, that we can actually begin to open up more trade with their neighbors, where they'll take some of our products that we grow here in America, reduce those tariffs, and we can bring in some of their products. Yeah, that's how free and fair trade should be done in this country.
That's an important point to look at Japan, Philippines, and Vietnam. I'll ask Peter Navarro about that coming up, because of course he's working on the U.S.'s trade policies there. But you just said something interesting. You said that you have been investigating Chinese practices. You were going to announce that this week. Are you going to come out with the details of that investigation in this upcoming week?
Yeah, we continue to look at the areas that we're going to investigate. So the way that we're looking at it now, Maria, is first and foremost we're looking at the military footprint and potential military footprint that China is trying to put around the globe. So this didn't get a lot of fanfare because there's so much attention being paid to the Russian fiasco and Russian collusion. But in the meantime, the Chinese just opened up a base, a military base in Djibouti. Djibouti's at the entrance to the Red Sea, in the heart of the Middle East, in the Indian Ocean, a long way away from China. We believe that they are looking at investing in ports and infrastructure around the globe, not just for military capabilities, but also to control those governments, to have the ability to lobby and manipulate governments when you invest in things like financial markets or the energy sector.
Yeah, this is a really important.
And third, and I think most importantly also, they're stealing our intellectual property. So either it's through the internet or it's through investing in educational systems here or think tanks. They're bringing people here. I believe that they are stealing Silicon Valley blind, and in just a few years, the American people are going to possibly be looking to China for new coding and new programs because of everything that the Chinese are stealing from here in America.
That's right, because they are trying to transfer technology from America to China on some of the most important industries of the future. What I was struck by speaking with you before this interview is you have called China a growing national security threat. So I want to turn to the FBI investigation in a moment, but go through why you see China as this growing national security threat, in particular building those military bases all over the world.
Well, I mean, yeah, let's start with that. So I just mentioned that they're building a military base in Djibouti. They are also continuing to put more and more submarines into the oceans. They took over the South China Sea, so they built islands that are essentially, I call them stationary aircraft carriers, all over the South China Sea. So, why does that matter? Why does that matter to people here in California or all over the United States of America? Well, it's because almost 2/3 of the world's global trade goes through that area. And so if they control the entrance to the Red Sea and they control the South China Sea, very strategic locations, I might add, they effectively could cut off world trade if they wanted to. And so I don't see them, nobody wants to have a fight or a war with China or a trade war with China. But the fact of the matter is that they are a communist dictatorship. Most of the major companies are state-owned enterprises. If you're an American and you go try to invest in China, you have to make a deal. Some part of the Communist Party is going to own that deal. If you're not part of the Communist Party in China, you're not going to own a business. So these are the types of things that we have to be concerned about, especially as they begin not only to advance their military capabilities, but also to steal our military secrets. And then furthermore, if you look at smaller countries around the globe, they've really made investments into major infrastructure. So I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but if you come in and the Chinese loan you billions of dollars to build a railway or a port, what countries in Africa have found out that comes with a price. They then want your vote in the United Nations.
Wow.
So these are the types of things and why China is such a national security threat, and why I think what you're seeing is if the president can kind of move off of the steel and aluminum threats directly, tariffs directly, and move into more of holding China accountable and bringing them to the table, we might be able to strike a deal that we haven't been able to strike in many, many decades.
Well, this is a really unreported story, an underreported story. I'm glad you just broke the news that you're actually working on an investigation of all of this, and you will have more details for us on that coming soon. So we'll keep following that, Congressman. I know that there are 10 industries in China that are deemed off limits for foreigners. You cannot even own a joint venture in things like defense and financial services, and we don't do any of that here in the U.S. So we'll keep watching that. But I want to get your take on the other major investigation that you've been working on, and that is, of course, looking at the FBI and its handling of the Hillary Clinton email investigation, as well as this Russia collusion story. Last week, we had one of your colleagues on the program, Chairman Bob Goodlatte of the Judiciary Committee, and here's what he said. Listen to this. Congressman, let's be clear. There are 1.2 million documents. You've only seen 3,000 of them. You've been stonewalled for 5 months.
We have seen some documents. We've seen more than we saw from the Obama administration Justice Department, but we need more documents, and we need them now, and we need them unredacted, by the way, Maria. If
you keep getting stonewalled and you don't get these documents, are you going to subpoena these documents?
Well, the answer is yes.
Okay, Congressman, obviously we got the subpoena. It went out late last week. Bob Goodlatte broke the news on this program last Sunday. If you don't get those documents, then what?
So if I was Chairman Goodlatte, what I would do quickly, because I had to go through this for the last year, fighting the Department of Justice and FBI for documents. I think the American people now know that they stonewalled for many, many months so that we could actually figure out that Fusion GPS was paid by the Democratic Party and the Clinton campaign to collude and interact with Russians to get dirt on President Trump. That took us a long time to find out, and what I would recommend to my colleagues on the House Judiciary Committee, and I applaud Chairman Goodlatte for what he's doing, but don't wait. So when we get back in 2 weeks, if the 1.2 million documents aren't in the Capitol, then he should immediately move to hold Department of Justice and the FBI in contempt. And if we have to vote on contempt, then we should immediately move to impeach those officials. That would be using the full power of the Congress, but we can't wait. We've been listening for over a year and a half to the Democrats in this country scare the American people that they have evidence of collusion with Russians, which they don't. They can't prove it. They've been saying it. You have these investigations ongoing. You have FBI officials who have been fired. Congress is a separate branch of government. We created the Department of Justice, and the Congress needs those documents, and they need them now. They need them yesterday.
Well, you obviously, for all of those reasons, shut down, closed your investigation in potential collusion because you did not find any. But I want to go through the findings that you did come up with and report when you announced closing that investigation. What struck you most?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that strike me. You asked me what strikes me most about the report that we released. Let me start there. What strikes me most is that we had 70 recommendations and findings, yet I think you might be the first person to actually cover our recommendations and findings, because all of the media that's essentially allied with the Democratic Party ignored. They went out there with this narrative that the House Republicans were never interested in doing an investigation. However, the opposite is true. We have 70 findings and recommendations. So what I would start with on that is that let's start with paper ballots. Perhaps in this country, we just talked about China. We know that the Russians are always up to no good. We better go back to using paper ballots in this country so that we have a way to check and double check that votes are accurate and all votes are counted. I think that's a major finding, a major recommendation in our report.
Yeah, I want to talk about that, Congressman.
We also found no collusion between the Trump campaign, but we did find links between the Clinton and Democratic Party to the Russians.
Let's go through those links. We're going to take a short break. Welcome back. We are back with California Congressman Devin Nunes, chairman of the Intel Committee. He's the chairman of the House Intel Committee that just voted to release the Republican majority's report on the Russia investigation, which found no evidence of collusion between the president and Russia. And Congressman, I was saying this earlier, if we know that the Democrats and the Hillary Clinton campaign paid for the dossier, then the FBI used the dossier to get a warrant to wiretap the president's team, I mean, shouldn't that be under the group of things that the special counsel looks at, since his mandate, Robert Mueller's mandate, was to find collusion with the Russians? Can he ignore it?
Well, you would think so, but I have no faith in that process. I supported the Mueller probe in the beginning. But I thought originally that they would get into who did all the leaks, who leaked the conversation between General Flynn and the Russian ambassador.
Which
and
was
in fact,
a felony,
that was one of the things that we found in which was a felony. That hasn't been looked at. So this is not, to me, they're just looking at the Trump campaign. This is a further continuation of what the FBI was doing that started in midsummer 2016. It's a continuation of that. And look, there's no collusion. If they don't have any collusion, they ought to come out and say it. If they have some collusion, then they ought to come out and say it. But it seems to me like this is going nowhere fast. And in fact, let's remember too, one of the findings we had is there's an old law in the books that's 200 years old. It's never been used. It's called the Logan Act. This is the reason that they went after General Flynn, at least the reason that they described to Congress. So one of the findings we have in our report is, why do we have the Logan Act on the books when we know that it's selectively enforced? So you decided to use it against your political opponent, General Mike Flynn, who was the incoming national security advisor to President Trump. However, the Obama administration, who had people over in Moscow back in 2008 talking to the Russian government, which would clearly be a violation of the Logan Act, it wasn't enforced then. So this is an outdated law. It's never been used. It should be struck from the books so that political opponents can't use it against each other.
We are waiting on the IG report, the Inspector General. What should we expect from Michael Horowitz's report? It feels like ahead of that report, some key people are being reassigned or fired within the FBI as a result of what's coming.
Yeah, so, I mean, the main thing that we've learned so far is that the IG was able to get these text messages between Strzok and Page, and that's really illuminated a lot of the problems and biases that we were able to see in the Justice Department and the FBI's investigation. And so it will be interesting to see. This was only, remember, the IG report is only looking at how they investigation. So we really need that report. The sooner the better, because that information is really pertinent to the investigations that both the Judiciary Committee has going on and the Intelligence Committee, because we're still looking into FISA abuse and other matters. We still have a lot of witnesses to bring in from the State Department and from the FBI and DOJ to try to get to the bottom of, was there a conspiracy to go after the Trump campaign? Did people purposely obstruct Congress's investigation? We still need to get those answers, and that's what we continue to look at.
And we'll continue to look for any new text messages that come out to illuminate further information for us. Congressman, it's good to see you, sir. Thanks so much.